What is the purpose of an assessment? It's like a benchmark when trying to see what your student knows versus what they need. It's a check-in. So you basically get a baseline to find out what is going on. I think there should be ongoing check-ins, not just from the beginning of the year or like the beginning of the subject, but over any criteria age and over all stages of learning, even in college. I know that in most courses you just get 3 exams and cover several chapters or even the entire textbook. That structure isn't bad, it just assumes that students will retain and reproduce everything on demand. But humans forget that's inevitable. Frequently low stakes check ins, sometimes called primitive assessments, would help catch those gaps before the big test. And believe me, they would save my grade a little bit. I think the video from the textbook presented by Tom Jenkins described it best. First, you let your students learn and try. Then you check in where they're at. Then you adjust instructions. The cycle teach, assess, respond makes much more sense than waiting until the end. Unfortunately, most of the big tests, like finals or standardized exams, only show what students didn't master when it's too late to adjust instructions. And most of the time, from what we've seen from recent years and my own discoveries, they just keep getting moving up a grade. I've been reading a lot of websites where fourth graders are reading on a second grade level. We just keep moving them up. Not a good thing. Why don't we adjust that? Some of the positive and negative experience. Some of my best experience of assessments came from feedback. In a college writing course, I remember a professor who didn't just circle mistakes, she left comments like, good idea, but try supporting this with more detail from the text. The feedback showed me how to improve, not just what I got wrong. It made the grade meaningful. But I've also had the opposite. In high school, I got a test back. It read 72% on the top. No explanation. I remember staring at the problem thinking, where did I go wrong? What do I do? Without feedback, the grade became a dead end. I couldn't go anyplace from that. And it also really kind of screwed me over in the long run. That, hey, I no longer trust the little bit of concept that I thought I had that could have just easily been explained away. Now I don't trust my skills at all. The connection with the idea of assessment learning versus assessment of learning grades without explanations serves the system, not the students. That's why we're teachers. No offense. We work for the students. We want them to learn things. We don't do it for, I guess, money, but since now education's kind of on the fall end of money wise, we're focused more on what grades they get versus what they actually will learn. Biased and assumption. When it comes to bias, the test itself is completely neutral. It has no opinion. It's a piece of paper or it's a computer. It has no opinion, but teachers are human. Every person has bias, even the best of teachers, when they recognize them or not. For example, in high school, I wrote this story that I was really proud of. It checked every single box on the rubric, and I thought it was solid, but my teacher gave me a little praise and an average grade. Another student wrote a piece that matched the teacher's personal style better. I think it was on Percy Jackson or something. I don't remember. They received glowing comments, but both met the criteria, but one connected more with the grader. It's a classic example of subject bias, but there's also some systematic bias and assumptions standardized tests. For instance, others reflect cultural assumptions that disadvantage students from different backgrounds. So while I focused on teacher bias, I realized assumption design itself can also privilege certain groups of students over others. Another thing I've noticed is that tests are almost always individual. That makes sense. It's if the goal is to measure each student's knowledge, but it doesn't reflect real world problem solving. In real life, whether it's trying to figure out how to pay for college or solving an issue at work, you collaborate. In one science class, I remember wishing I could just check with the student next to me if I understood the question correctly. Not to copy the answer, but to confirm that I was reading the problem the right way. A quick 2-second exchange could have changed my whole approach. This is where the ideas of like collaborative assumption or peer review could help. They don't have to replace individual tests, but they could supplement them and build skills students will actually use outside of class. For me, assessment works best when it's not a final judgment, but a conversation between teacher and student, between peers, and even between a student and themselves. It should show both what you've learned and what you need to learn next. The way assessment becomes more than a grade on a page, they become a tool of growth.